There are some losses in life that break you so completely, you don't think you'll ever be whole again. Losing your children isn't like losing anything else. It's not like losing a job or a home or even your reputation. It's like losing pieces of your own heart, pieces that keep beating somewhere far away from you, calling for you, and you can't reach them no matter how hard you try. My name is Fatima Darwish, and this is the story of how one moment of wonder cost me everything I loved most in this world. Before we begin, I need to ask you something. Wherever you are right now, whether you're in Brazil, South Africa, Indonesia, Canada, the United Kingdom, or anywhere else, please leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. We need to know we're not alone in this. We need to remember to lift each other up in prayer, because the story I'm about to share reminds us that faith sometimes demands a price we never imagined we'd have to pay. I was 35 years old when my life split into before and after. Madaba is an ancient town in Jordan, famous for its mosaics and its history. Christians and Muslims have lived side by side here for generations. The mosaic map of the Holy Land in St. George's Church brings tourists from all over the world. Growing up, I walked past that church almost every day on my way to school, never thinking much about what went on inside those walls. I became a midwife because I loved the moment of birth, that sacred instant when a new soul enters the world and a mother's pain transforms into joy. For 15 years, I'd been helping women bring their babies into the world. I delivered over 400 babies in Madaba and the surrounding villages. Women trusted me. They called for me in their most vulnerable moments, when they were frightened and in pain, when they needed someone with steady hands and a calm voice. I was married to Rashid, a man I'd known since we were teenagers. We had 2 children, Layla, who was 8, and Omar, who was 6. They were my entire world. Every morning, I would braid Layla's hair and listen to her chatter about school. Every evening, Omar would show me his drawings and tell me elaborate stories about the adventures he'd had that day. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and I was content. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late autumn, around 9 in the evening, when the Haddad family called me. Their daughter Miriam was in labor with twins, and the birth wasn't going well. When I arrived at their home, I could see immediately that the situation was serious. The first baby was breech. Miriam was exhausted and terrified. Her husband was pacing the hallway, and her mother was praying quietly in the corner. I worked for 7 hours that night. It was one of the most difficult deliveries I'd ever attended. There were moments when I thought we might lose one or both babies. There were moments when Miriam's blood pressure dropped so dangerously low that I considered calling for an ambulance, even though the nearest hospital was 40 minutes away. But somehow, by the grace of God, though I didn't think of it in those terms then, both babies were born alive and healthy. 2 perfect little girls, tiny and wrinkled and beautiful. When I placed them in Miriam's arms, she wept with joy and relief. Her husband kissed her forehead. Her mother praised God in a way I'd never quite heard before. The Haddad family was Christian. I'd known this, of course, but it had never mattered to me before. A birth is a birth. A baby is a baby. Pain and joy don't care about your religion. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Haddad came to my clinic to have me check on Miriam and the twins. Everything was healing well. As she was leaving, she hesitated at the door, then turned back to me. She told me that they were having the twins baptized on Sunday, and that they would be honored if I would attend. She said I'd been part of bringing these babies into the world, and they wanted me to be part of welcoming them into the faith as well. I almost said no. It felt strange, inappropriate even. But something in her face, the warmth, the genuine desire for me to be there, made me agree. That Sunday, I put on my best clothes and went to St. George's Church. I'd never been inside before. The ancient mosaics on the walls glowed in the candlelight. The air smelled of incense and old stone. I sat in the back, feeling out of place, watching as the priest performed the ceremony. But then something happened that I wasn't prepared for. As the priest prayed over those 2 tiny babies, the same babies whose first breath I'd witnessed, whose slippery bodies I'd caught in my hands, he spoke about them being beloved children of God. About grace being poured out on them not because of anything they'd done or would do, but simply because God loved them. About them being washed clean and welcomed into God's family with open arms. Something inside my chest cracked open. All my life, I'd been taught that God's favor had to be earned. That I had to pray 5 times a day, fast during Ramadan, follow every rule, perform every ritual correctly, and even then, I could never be sure if it was enough. I lived with a constant low-level anxiety about whether I was doing enough, being enough, pleasing God enough. But this priest was saying something different. He was saying these babies were loved and accepted before they could do anything at all. That grace, unearned, undeserved grace, was being given to them as a gift. I left that church with tears running down my face, though I couldn't have explained why. Over the following weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd witnessed. I started researching online, reading about Christian beliefs, trying to understand this concept of grace that had shaken something loose in my soul. I found an Arabic-speaking church that met in a community center on Friday afternoons. I started attending, always sitting in the back, always leaving quickly afterward. The people there were kind. They didn't pressure me. They answered my questions. They shared their own stories of faith. And week by week, I felt myself being drawn towards something I didn't fully understand but desperately wanted. One evening, about 4 months after attending that baptism, I prayed alone in my room and told Jesus that I wanted to follow him. That I wanted this grace I'd heard about. That I was tired of trying to earn God's love and wanted to simply receive it as a gift. I felt peace wash over me like cool water on burning skin. I knew I had to be careful. I'd heard stories of people who'd converted and lost everything. So I told no one except a woman named Nadia whom I'd met at the church, another convert who understood the delicate position I was in. She became my friend, my confidant, the only person who knew the truth about the change happening in my heart. For 8 months, I managed to keep my new faith hidden. I continued going to the mosque with my family. I continued observing Ramadan outwardly while praying to Jesus in secret. I read my Bible late at night when everyone else was asleep. I felt like I was living a double life, and the weight of the deception pressed down on me constantly, but I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't lose my children. I couldn't lose my work. I couldn't lose everything. Then Nadia, my trusted friend, had a crisis of faith. She decided she'd made a mistake, that the cost of following Jesus was too high. And when she returned to Islam, seeking to restore her own reputation and relationships, she told people about others she knew who'd converted, including me. Within 2 days, everyone in Madaba knew that Fatima Darwish, the midwife, had become a Christian. My husband confronted me the evening after he found out. Rashid's face was white with shock and rage. He asked me if it was true. I could have lied. Maybe I should have lied. But something in me couldn't deny Jesus, not after what he'd given me. So I told Rashid yes, it was true. He told me I had brought shame on his family. That I had made his children objects of ridicule. That I was unfit to be a mother or a wife. He said he was divorcing me immediately and that I would never see Layla and Omar again. I begged him. I fell to my knees and begged him not to take my children. I promised I would be a good mother, that my faith wouldn't change how I cared for them. I told him they needed me. He looked at me with disgust and told me I should have thought about that before I betrayed everything we stood for. The divorce happened within a week. Under Jordanian law, because I had left Islam, I was considered an apostate. Rashid's lawyer argued that I was morally unfit to raise Muslim children. The judge agreed. Custody was awarded to Rashid. I was granted no visitation rights. None. Just like that, my children were taken from me. Layla cried when they told her. She didn't understand why Mama couldn't live with them anymore. Omar was too young to fully grasp what was happening, but he knew something was terribly wrong. He clung to my leg when they came to take them, and I had to pry his little hands off me while he sobbed. That moment broke something in me that has never fully healed. But losing my children wasn't the end of it. Within days, women in the community began refusing my services. Pregnant women who'd been scheduled to have me attend their births called to cancel. Some were apologetic, saying their husbands had forbidden it. Others were hostile, telling me I was unclean, that I couldn't be trusted, that I might harm their babies. My clinic, the place where I'd helped bring hundreds of babies safely into the world, became a target. Someone spray-painted insults on the walls. Someone threw rocks through the windows. Women who'd once smiled at me in the street now crossed to the other side to avoid me. Then came the day of the attack. I was at my clinic, trying to salvage what I could of my practice, when I heard shouting outside. I looked out the window and saw a crowd gathering, maybe 20 or 30 people, mostly men but some women too. They were angry, shouting about apostasy and dishonor. I locked the door, but that didn't stop them. They broke through, flooding into my clinic like a violent tide. They overturned furniture, destroyed equipment, tore up patient records. And then they turned on me. I won't describe every detail of what happened in that clinic. I'll simply tell you that multiple people struck me, fists, feet, objects they grabbed from around the room. Someone pulled my hair so hard I thought my scalp would tear. Someone else spat in my face and called me a traitor and a whore. A woman I'd helped deliver a baby for just 2 years earlier stood in the crowd and cheered as others hurt me. The violence lasted maybe 10 minutes, though it felt like hours. When they finally left, I was lying on the floor among the wreckage of my clinic, bleeding and bruised and broken. A Christian neighbor, an elderly man who'd always been kind to me, found me there. He helped me to his car and drove me to the hospital. The doctors treated my injuries: a broken nose, 2 cracked ribs, multiple contusions, a concussion. But they couldn't treat the deeper wounds, the ones that don't show up on X-rays. When I was released from the hospital, I had nowhere to go. Rashid had changed the locks on our home. My own family had disowned me. My mother told me through a message from my brother that I was no longer her daughter. I moved into a small, cheap apartment on the outskirts of town with the little money I had saved. I fell into a darkness I'd never experienced before. Depression swallowed me whole. I stopped eating properly. I stopped sleeping through the night. I would wake up reaching for my children, forgetting for a moment that they were gone, and then reality would crash down on me again. I thought about killing myself. Not in a dramatic way. I didn't have the energy for drama. I just wanted the pain to stop. I wanted to stop waking up every morning to a world where my children existed but I couldn't see them, touch them, hold them. Where my life's work had been destroyed because I'd chosen to follow Jesus. Where I was utterly, completely alone. One night, I had a bottle of pills in my hand. I'd researched how many it would take. I sat on the floor of my apartment, staring at them, telling God that I couldn't do this anymore. That the cost was too high. That I wanted out. My phone rang. It was a woman from the church, someone I barely knew named Hanan. She told me she'd been praying and felt strongly that she needed to check on me. She asked if she could come over. I told her no, that I was fine, but she came anyway. When she arrived and saw me sitting on the floor with the pills, she didn't panic. She didn't lecture me. She just sat down beside me and started talking. She told me her own story, how she'd converted and lost custody of her children too. How she'd also wanted to die. How she'd survived anyway, one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time. She told me about a network of women, all converts, all persecution survivors, who met regularly to support each other. She said they could help me fight for my children. That there were Christian lawyers who might take my case. That I didn't have to face this alone. I didn't believe her. But I was too tired to refuse. That network of women saved my life. They connected me with a lawyer named Mr. Kasem who specialized in custody cases involving religious conversion. He told me honestly that it would be an uphill battle, Jordanian law wasn't on my side, but that there might be a chance if we could demonstrate that I was stable, employed, and capable of providing for my children. The problem was, I had no job. No one would hire a midwife who'd converted to Christianity. But one of the women in the support group, a woman named Rima, told me about a clinic that served Syrian and Iraqi refugees in a camp near Zarqa. They were desperate for medical staff and didn't care about my religious background. They just needed someone who could help. I started working there 3 months after the attack. The conditions were difficult, overcrowded, under-resourced, overwhelming need. But the refugee women didn't judge me. They didn't care that I'd converted. They just needed someone to help them bring their babies safely into the world. Slowly, very slowly, I began to rebuild. I found purpose again in my work. The women in my support group kept me going on the days when I wanted to give up. My lawyer filed the custody case, and we began the long, painful process of fighting through the Jordanian legal system. It took 2 years. 2 years of court dates and evaluations and testimonies. 2 years of seeing my children only through photos that well-meaning friends would secretly share with me. 2 years of missing birthdays and school plays and the everyday moments that make up a childhood. 2 years of waking up every single day with the ache of their absence. The judge finally ruled that I could have supervised visitation, 4 hours, twice a month, with a court-appointed observer present. It wasn't full custody. It wasn't even close to what I wanted. But it was something. The first time I saw Layla and Omar after 2 years, I almost couldn't breathe. Layla was 10 now, taller, her face more mature. Omar was 8, his baby features giving way to the boy he was becoming. They were shy at first, uncertain. Omar didn't remember me as clearly as Layla did. That hurt more than I can describe. But slowly, visit by visit, we're rebuilding our relationship. Layla asks me questions about my faith now. She wants to understand why I made the choice that cost us so much time together. I try to answer honestly, in ways she can understand. I tell her that sometimes loving something means sacrificing everything else. That I didn't stop being her mother when I became a Christian. If anything, learning about Jesus' love helped me understand how to love her better. I don't know if she fully understands. I don't know if she ever will. But she's listening, and that's something. I'm 37 now. I work full-time at the refugee clinic, helping women who've lost everything bring new life into the world. The irony isn't lost on me. I lost almost everything too, and yet here I am, catching babies, wiping tears, offering hope to women who desperately need it. My life looks nothing like what I imagined it would be. I'm divorced, partially estranged from my children, cut off from my extended family, working in a refugee camp instead of my own thriving practice. The depression still comes in waves. Some days are harder than others. I still cry when I see mothers with their children, doing ordinary things I can't do with mine. But I'm also discovering something I never expected. In losing everything, I found something real. A faith that isn't based on performance or fear. A community of women who've walked through fire and survived. A purpose that goes beyond my own comfort or reputation. And a relationship with Jesus that has sustained me through the darkest valley I've ever walked through. I won't tell you it was worth it, that's not for me to judge. The cost has been enormous, almost unbearable at times. My children paid a price they never chose. That will always be complicated, always be painful. But I will tell you this, Jesus has been with me through every moment. In the hospital after the attack. On the floor with the pills in my hand. In the courtroom when the judge ruled against me. In the refugee camp when I'm exhausted and overwhelmed. In the supervised visits when I only get 4 precious hours with my children. He doesn't promise to take away the pain. But he promises to walk through it with us. And somehow, impossibly, that's been enough to keep me alive, keep me going, keep me hoping that redemption is possible even in the ruins.